Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I call to order the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners in a land use hearing today. Before we begin, I invite you to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This morning we'll consider ZDO 260, which is a legislative amendment to the text of the county's comprehensive plan. The hearing will proceed as follows. We will first hear the staff presentation from Senior Transportation Planner Lori Mastrantonio. Next, I will open the hearing for public testimony, beginning with public officials who will have 5 minutes each. Then representatives from recognized community planning organizations, agencies will have 3 minutes each, followed by the public, should they desire, at 3 minutes each. Assisting in the hearing room today is Clerk Kevin Moss, County Counsel Stephen Madcore, and again, Senior Transportation Planner Lori Mastrantonio, and Transportation Planning Supervisor Karen Burig. If you wish to testify, please complete one of the green cards and give it to Kevin. If you have a prepared written statement, please give a copy to Kevin and use your time to summarize what you have written. Everyone who wishes to speak will have an opportunity to do so. We will now hear from Senior Transportation Planner Lori Mastrantonio.
Good morning, Commissioners. Let's see. We're going to begin with a brief PowerPoint presentation for the Villages at Mount Hood Pedestrian and Bikeway Implementation Plan. We were last here in October before the board for a work study session, and so it's been a couple months ago, so we'll just kind of go over the project again. This project involves the Villages at Mount Hood, and those communities include Brightwood, Welches, Wemme, Zigzag, and Rhododendron. And the main part of this project was the issue of limited and inadequate and poorly connected ped and bike pathways. In some cases, we have some narrow shoulders. In other cases, folks are forced to walk and bike along the highway. And a big part of this project was figuring out solutions and coming up with a number of projects to improve the bicycle and pedestrian facilities in those communities. And a big part of it is to provide transportation choices. Not everyone on the mountain has a car. We have 5,000 permanent residents, 15,000 visitors to the area. Many people really enjoy hiking and walking and being able to access the local destinations and services in those areas. And it's also an important part is to provide access to transit as well. So this is a map that illustrates the boundaries of the Villages of Mount Hood. It's a very large area. And why did we come up with this project? Well, a few years ago, ODOT completed the US 26 multimodal plan, and that plan indicated a number of safety improvements that were needed, and that included better access to transit and better transit in the area, and also safe pedestrian crossings of US 26 and other strategic places within the villages. We received a state TGM, Transportation Growth Management Grant, to study this area. Another important part of this project is the update of the Mount Hood Community Plan that was initially created in 1976. And in that plan, it does have very specific policies regarding crosswalks, signals, and so forth in some of the villages. And also talks about the shuttle bus system, which is, by the way, very successful, and the community is very supportive and happy to have that service there. And then we have the local needs that I mentioned as far as providing safe pet and bike travel. A big project is the multi-use path that received some of the greatest support of the projects within the plan. We also found that the community supports increased transit service, and that has actually increased over the last year or two. The community is very supportive of having choices. And when we talk about choices for the area, it's both for residents and visitors. Tourism is a big part of the area there, and economic development. So we did find through our open houses and our public outreach that we did have a lot of support for a lot of these projects. We also had the opportunity to create a Safe Routes to School plan for the Welch's schools there. A number of the projects include some shoulder widening and pathways to have safer connections for students. And the projects that are recommended, they align with our TSP, our Transportation System Plan, and our Active Transportation Plan as well. The four main objectives of the project include identifying the bike and ped needs within these communities, developing the Safe Routes Plan that I mentioned, also identifying locations for potential crossings of US 26, and evaluating the feasibility of a multi-use path connecting all the villages. So we did the usual studying and reviewing our state and county plans and policies. We analyzed a variety of safety issues, and those mostly had to do with the conditions of the roadways and crossings and pathways. We have multiple technical memorandums, and they have to do with the barriers and challenges. And we also developed a list of criteria for evaluating projects, and the community members were very much involved in that process. We had walking tours within each of the villages. We had stakeholder interviews, especially those who could not be a part of our project advisory committee. I feel like we had a well-represented PAC, and we also had a technical advisory committee. We had open houses, questionnaires. Those were available online, as well as hard copies for community members. We met several times with school staff as well to determine the needs for their students there. So just a few highlights in each of the communities. In the Brightwood area, a number of projects had to do with shoulder widening and signage. So, we discovered an under crossing and a way to go under the highway in the Brightwood area. So signing for that turned out to be one of our projects. In the Welch's area, where there are existing demand paths, as I mentioned, connecting and having a multi-use path along the highway, that was a very important project. And as it turns out, well over the majority of a potential pathway there is within the public right-of-way. In the community, both business owners and residents are very supportive of a pathway through there. Also in the Welch's area, safer pedestrian crossings on across 26, that's was a significant concern. And the major shoulder widening areas included Welch's and Salmon River Road. And also they requested speed feedback signs in those areas too. And as you probably know, that speeding along 26 in that area is a concern, even though it's posted 40, 45 miles per hour. And rhododendron, similar improvements, very much supportive of a pedestrian crossing there. We work closely with ODOT, with the Mount Hood National Forest folks, Bureau of Land Management, community members again, and we had discussions regarding how do we make a safe crossing? And it was clear, especially from ODOT and engineers, our engineers as well, that we needed to have a sense of place and we needed visual cues so that traffic flowing into and out of the rhododendron area, they would know that, okay, we're driving into a community, we need to slow down, and if there's a pedestrian crossing, we need to have significant changes there. And that includes curbs, gutters, sidewalks, also an access management plan to perhaps limit the number of driveways or condense access to some of the services there. We talked to some of the business owners about that as well. And pathways and also gateway and transit signs. And in Welch's, it includes some of the safe routes to school projects. And we realize that well over the majority of students will continue to be bused. It's a very large district boundary there, but we also know that there are a number of students who do walk and bike in the area. So we've recommended a number of crossings and shoulder widening and pathways in those areas. And the other thing too is that we realize that the community, they gravitate towards the school for all kinds of social activities, and so there's a lot of activities happening there, and so having transportation options is important in that area. So the goal of today's hearing is to review the amendments and decide whether to approve the package of proposed amendments. That's part of ZDO 260. And that includes the update to Chapter 10, the Mount Hood Community Plan. And mostly those changes are under the transportation section. And also in Chapter 5, we've had a few changes, and we've added the significant projects that are part of the plan. We've added those to the TSP tables. And that's in the Tier 1, 2, and 3, and also to some of the regional projects. And we've updated the map that goes along with that. Also, we're suggesting that the village's plan be a part of and adopted as under Appendix B in the comp plan. And we believe that this proposal meets the statewide planning goals and guidelines and the zoning criteria, including public involvement process. So, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this project at their November 14th hearing. And I think we have someone here to speak in support of that. So, thank you.
Commissioner Savas.
Just a clarifying question, Lori. The map you first presented showed the area, the study area, and knowing that Government Camp is farther up the road and not on the map, your last couple slides there focused on the Mount Hood Community Plan, and so I'm just trying to get clarification. We're making some amendments and some changes like the village districts, and it goes on to talk about Government Camp. So they're not, Government Camp is or is not associated with this?
Well, we're making no changes regarding any policies regarding Government Camp. Government Camp is still part of the Mount Hood Community Plan.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so the change, maybe Mr. Madcore can answer. So the change from villages to village districts, is that what I've seen that's redlined on under that section you just, under the Mount Hood Community Plan, that was part of your last two slides? Yeah, there it is, under Chapter 10. So the Chapter 10, where it says Mount Hood Community Plan, so as I scroll down, there's a change there, at least it is in the board packet for today,
Yeah, okay.
where the word district is added.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to get a definition of what a village district is.
I think I'm going to ask Martha to address that
Okay.
because that was a change she made.
It's on? Yeah. It's on. Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Martha Fritzy, a senior planner with the Planning and Zoning Division, and I, excuse me, was assisting Lori with some of the process and comprehensive plan amendment issues. And so honestly, the change in that word is just it was intended to be clarifying. If you look at the paragraph that's right before it, it references the village districts. And we wanted it to be consistent with that because there was a bit of a concern, at least in planning, about what geographic area we're talking about when we talk about the villages of Mount Hood, because there are villages that are adopted into the comprehensive plan that have sort of a different definition than the villages of Mount Hood, which is actually a county, is in the county code. It's a different geographic area and has different implications that are not necessarily land use. It's a long and probably complicated way of saying we were just trying to be consistent in our terminology and clarify that the village districts are just sort of generalized areas. They're not the adopted geographic areas necessarily in either the county code language or county code or in the comprehensive plan. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah, it does, I think, except for maybe the word districts, because you included, I think, in your response that if you're including a potential village under that code part for a village, such as the villages of Mount Hood, that maybe the word ought to be village areas, because that is not a district, right? The current village that we've been talking about recently is not a district.
Okay, fair enough.
So is that, I'm just asking from a clarification standpoint, so people go to read this, that when we talk about districts have a specific meaning and a purpose, and this village that you cited, one of those is not either.
And that's totally fair. I mean, I think we could change it to village areas both in that header and in the paragraph before.
Okay.
And if that,
We probably ought to get a consensus from the commission about that.
of course, but we could do that.
So do you feel it's necessary, Martha?
I think it's fine. I would like it to be clear, and if that is what is more clear to people, if there's an association with a district, meaning having a different definition, certainly under county code, like as a special district, if that's the association with it, then area might be a more appropriate word.
I see county council nodding his head in the positive. Does that mean there's concurrence?
I agree that there could be a potential for some confusion between 451 special districts and between the villages of Mount Hood, a duly formed village district. And if it were to be clarified, to call it areas, change it throughout this comp plan amendment, that would be fine. I don't see necessarily conflict between the two. It's just the nomenclature itself.
Right, right.
All right, commissioners, do you have any problem with that change? I'm going to have staff do it, actually, as part of this.
No, I don't, it's fine.
All right.
Do we need a motion?
Oh, I don't think so now. Yeah, we haven't had a public hearing yet.
Oh, kiddo.
We're going to have one, though. The public is here to see us, right? Yes. All right, thank you, Martha. Thank you, Lori. Any further questions, Commission?
We have one public.
All right, I'll open the public hearing and ask for the only card here, Mr. Stephen Graper from the Rhododendron CPO.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Stephen Graper, and I'm Chair of the Rhododendron CPO. And I want to start off my comments. I know I've only got 3 minutes, but I want to start off my comments.
Really tough with you on that.
Okay. Welcoming Commissioner Strader back from China. I understand that you had a wonderful trip. And thanking Commissioners Bernard and Savas for their participation yesterday at the Mount Hood Area Chamber of Commerce breakfast. We appreciate your help and support up in the Mount Hood area. I am here today specifically to ask for your approval on the changes to ZDO 260. And the amendments contained therein. I had this beautiful 3-minute-long oratory all printed out like I did the last time, but it seems that it's still sitting on the output of my printer at home. So I'm speaking from the cuff, and I'm going to summarize my comments to this. I request that you seriously consider approving the amendments to ZDO 260. There has been a lot of community support, community input, staff time put into implementing the Villages at Mount Hood Bikeway and Pedestrian Implementation Plan, not to be confused with the Villages at Mount Hood, but the overall Villages at Mount Hood communities, not the specific district of the Villages at Mount Hood. And I can understand the confusion, and perhaps tomorrow that will change. The one specific request that I have as a representative of the Rhododendron CPO, and I am here today speaking on behalf of the Rhododendron CPO, is included in the changes on the Clackamas County Comprehensive Plan on Table 5.3D, Regional Capital Projects, project number project number ID 4069 and ID 4073 to the regional capital projects. I'd like to have those changed from low priority to high priority, and I don't know how you guys go about that. I do know it's a regional project and it has to do with ODOT, but there are some things taking place in Rhododendron that was unbeknownst to planning when they were implementing the plan and when the prioritization was placed on the regional projects, and by at least making note of the fact that I'd like to see those projects change from low priority to high priority makes it a little bit easier for us in Rhododendron to continue on with our plan to improve and revitalize the downtown core of Rhododendron for bicycle and pedestrian safety, vehicular safety, and economic development. There's my 3 minutes, and commissioners, thank you very much.
Commissioner Bernard?
What was that number, though, again?
On Table 5.3D, and it would be project ID number 4069 and 4073, from low priority to high priority.
Now, let's spend a minute, perhaps with Martha, or perhaps with Lori, if she's not busy, but about how these got to low priority versus high priority. So if our staff could explain that, that'd be great.
Good morning, Commissioners. Karen Bureg, Transportation Planning Supervisor. So as a part of our overall Transportation System Plan update that occurred in 2013, we looked at all of the different projects and put them into high, medium, and low priority categories. But we also took all of the projects that were on regional facilities, and that being facilities that were not county facilities, and we placed them in this Table D regional capital project list. So we looked at them separately from all of the other capital projects that were in Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. We really relied upon ODOT to help us determine the priorities on the regional priority list. For the most part, the regional projects are on ODOT facilities. So what I would say is that changing of these priorities from low until high doesn't have the same implications as it would moving them from list to list on the county roads, which we really worked very diligently at trying to balance with regards to our anticipated future revenues. This one was looked at, but not looked at as closely. So, does that answer your question?
Well, kinda. It sounds like planner speak to me, you know. So the bottom line is it going to be a negative effect by us changing it from low priority to high priority?
I would say no, there would not be a negative effect.
All right, so by placing on priority, all we're doing is telling ODOT that this is kind of a high or a low priority with us. I mean, why wouldn't, if in our communications with ODOT, why wouldn't we tell them everything is high priority? Good answer. All right, Commissioner Bernard.
Well, 406, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I sat on this committee, right? Yeah, we worked with ODOT, we worked with Hood River.
Right, the multimodal mixed-use plan, yes.
Yeah, and this was our portion of it. I mean, I don't have a problem if possible to move 4069 up because it's an audit of safety in rhododendron to Oregon 35. I mean, if it's possible to do that, great. 73 looks like it might have some cost implications, but, you know, we have a department that looks at these kind of things, and it might not be a bad idea to spend some time. But then again, the community, I assume, rank these.
Did you
Right.
want to add to that with regards to the ranking that came out of the overall discussion with the community?
In the plan, we did. We had a low, medium, high priority. And specifically, I need to look at the plan to double-check this, but when we went into, you know, taking those projects and putting them in to the TSP here, we looked at projects that were already existing, and then we added to it. And so this may have actually placed a little bit higher, and so I'm going to double-check that real
Right.
quick.
So, for example, as one of the things that Lori had talked about, this does include construct the multi-use path connecting the Mount Hood Express transit stops and the trail. And it's my understanding that that was a high priority for the community.
Yes.
So this wouldn't reflect the kind of more localized work that had been done on prioritization. So kind of going back to why these could potentially have a reason to be changed to a high priority versus others not, is that these projects did have that ability to go through this process and be looked at more closely and refined than perhaps this other very long list of projects on state facilities.
So I did have a chance to double-check, and when we look at the projects listed under the rhododendron section, the specific project of curbs, sidewalks, gutters, and those types of placemaking improvements, that is ranked as a high priority. So we combined several of these, and that's kind of how that happened.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, and I could be wrong, but my understanding, if you look, the three previous tables are the county projects and our county TSP, and the table we're talking about right now is the regional one. And I think if you just took out maybe we just said that, I think staff just said that, if we just take out the Mount Hood area related projects and we all ranked them high, then ones that are actually should be considered highest will be not really recognized. So this is a means of taking the highest ones and putting emphasis on those. But it doesn't mean that they're low priority in the scheme of things. It just means that the projects that are the highest should be identified as such in order to get them moving first.
Commissioner Bernard, did you have more?
And, you know, I guess that if you have a dollar, and assuming that they did something like that, you have $1 and you can only spend that dollar on those priorities. This one didn't reach that dollar, so it's down the list further. Even though it might be a community priority, it wasn't. I mean, is that kind of how that works?
Well, I guess I would say that during the TSP update process, the project that was originally in there, implement the Mount Hood multimodal study, including ITS, was a low priority. But what is being said now, and what Steve was saying is that through the Mount Hood, through this project, the Pedestrian Bicycle Implementation Plan project, and the discussion with the community, is that the items that are in red that are being added to that project are very much so a high priority for the community, and that in that whole collection of projects that are listed together, and I'm talking about 4073, should now be indicated as a high priority. So that would reflect what the community talked about most recently.
So you're suggesting a change?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to close the public hearing portion. Thank you, Stephen, and ask for the motion. Now, if you do want to change those two, again, it's Table 5, 3D, 4069, and 4073. Change them to high priority.
Paul should make the motion.
Yeah, let me make the motion here. So I move we approve ZDO 260 as recommended by staff with two changes. Number one, to change the word under Chapter 10 from districts to areas. And second, to move project or change project 4073 under Table 5 3D from low to high priority.
And didn't we have one other, 406?
4073?
I think staff's recommendation was
69.
7.3, not 6.9. And that would put emphasis on 4073.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Savas, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Further discussion? All right. So I think it's time for the polling. Kevin?
All right, Commissioner Bernard,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Ludlow.
Aye, passes 5-0. Now the ZDO 260 as amended has been approved. I'll direct staff to draft an ordinance reflecting today's decision included on the agenda for this board's adoption at a future business meeting. There being no further business before us at this land use hearing, this meeting is adjourned.